Hey, this is Tiger Clark, and I'm chopping it up with Buck.
All right, chopping it up with Buck. I got my man Bernard Tiger Clark. So we go way back, man.
Don't tell him.
God,
Don't tell him.
Tiger was at Miami. Went out there one spring, and I was recruited by Miami, so I kind of knew some of those guys from the recruiting trail. But a bunch of us went out there and hung out with the Miami guys, and played in the East-West Shrine game, played against each other in the league quite a few times when he was at Cincinnati and I was at Indy. But Bernard Clark Jr., Tiger, is what we're going to call you on this show, man. Happy to have you here, man.
I'm excited about being, man. I appreciate you bringing me on, Buck, man. This is exciting. Like you said, we go way back, man, back to our college days. We've been knowing each other for a minute.
But it's funny, I've talked to you about your parents. I'd love to hear more about Bernard Sr. and Teresa, your mom, and just what influence and impact they had on you and your life growing up in Tampa.
Well, the crazy thing is, but my mother, the one thing my mom told me when I was growing up, she said, everything and everybody deserves respect. So that's one thing she told me. And my dad told me, he said, you're going to be faced with racism. What you going to do, cry? You forget about it. You keep moving on. You don't worry about it. You can't let it bother you. So those are the biggest influences in my life, man, with those two. And then on top of that, before my father passed in 2019, before that, man, they were married for 59 years.
Wow.
So I waited to get married because I wanted to make sure I didn't want a divorce. It was a situation where I wanted to try to stay in their footprints as long as I could because of what they did. I'm not saying it was all easy, but for 59 years to be married, man, that's a long time. So they were a big influence in my life. And I tell you a crazy story, Buck. I mean, when I was getting ready to play, and we'll talk about it later on, when I was getting ready to play in the Orange Bowl, and I don't know how my dad made it down to the field, man. My pops came down to the field. He said, boy, come here. And I said, what's up, Pops? He's like, I've been hearing you talk in the paper and talk on TV, but like you got to prove something. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. He said, these coaches believe in you. Your teammates believe in you. Go out there and do what you're capable of doing. So that's the influence my mom and dad have always had in my life, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's always interesting because I always want to know about people's background. Was it a coach also? I know your dad was influential, but was there any coach or anybody else that had a real big influence on your life now that you're coaching yourself?
You know what? I can't say that there was a coach when I was younger. Probably the coach that had the biggest influence in my life was Jimmy Johnson.
Okay.
I had a Pee Wee coach who I still keep in touch with. His name is Glenn Permure. He was a West Tampa Boys Club. But Coach Johnson probably had the biggest influence in my life. I try to mimic a lot of things that Coach Johnson did with us at the University of Miami now that I'm a head coach at Robert Morris University.
What did he do that was so influential? What are some of the things that you try to kind of emulate with Coach Johnson?
When I first got to the University of Miami, there was a sign. It went from the training room to the locker room. And that sign said, preparation plus opportunity equals success. And that was ingrained in my mind. And like I talked about when I was talking about a national championship game, when that opportunity came for me, I took full advantage of it. That's one thing Coach Johnson's always preached with us is that understand we're all going to be treated fairly, but we're not going to be treated equal. So he taught me that early on. So I understood that Mike Irvin gonna get away with a few more things than I'm gonna get away with. Those are the things you come to understand with Coach Johnson. If you're a starter and you're on the team, on the field, you can maybe get away with other things. But off the field, everybody's gonna be treated fairly. That's one of the things that he taught us, man. That the one thing about us, we're always prepared. And everybody always said this. I'm sure your coach said the same thing. There are things that he allowed you to do, and there were some things you weren't gonna do. It wasn't one way or the other. It's like he's gonna either allow it or he's gonna coach it, and that's what it boils down to.
Well, I can remember the first time I saw the Hurricanes, and this is why I got interested in you guys. Y'all were in Houston, and we'll go back to the Orange Bowl because I got a bunch of questions about that.
Yeah, no problem.
But it was interesting. Michael Irvin was there, and they were in Bennigan's in Houston, right by Rice. Beat the crap out of Rice. And Hubbard Alexander was recruiting me. So I went over there and met with those guys. And Mike had this big chain, the playmaker. So him and Fulling, bunch of guys. And it was enthusiastic to watch because y'all talked a lot of trash, but y'all backed it up. Was it like that for you in high school before you got to Miami?
At my high school?
Yeah.
But my high school, we haven't had a winning season in my high school since 1993. So no, it was nothing like that in my high school. As a matter of fact, I was just having this conversation with someone. At my high school, I went to Miami. 2 years after me, Mike Helt went to the Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And there was a receiver that played Ohio State. His name was, I can't remember his last name, but I think his first name was Mike. I want to say Mike Evans, but I'm not sure. But he played Ohio State. We had any other big time players come out of my high. My high school was a real bad high school. I love it. Lato High School in Tampa, Florida,
Yeah.
but we didn't have any players come out of there. The reason I chose Miami was exactly what you just said. I remember in 1983, Miami was getting ready to play Nebraska. And when I was growing up, I watched pro football. I didn't really watch college football. And when I'm watching this game, I'm thinking, man, Nebraska about to beat the brakes off Miami. And then Miami did what they did. And then I was like, wow. And I started following them ever since. When I took that visit down there, man, when I first walked on campus, the first thing they talked about was the cone on my head. I was like, man, it's just like home. To you talking trash to you. It just felt like, because I didn't grow up with brothers. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. I got 3 older sisters. I didn't grow up with brothers. So those guys just bonded with me, man. I just fell in love with the atmosphere down there with Selwyn Brown and Darryl Fulton and Mike Irvin and Rod Carter and all those guys, Tracy Waiters. That atmosphere, I really fell in love with it.
Yeah, man. It's always interesting. The Miami guys, it's funny. I got to know them because I got a lot of guys who get recruited from Texas and ended up going there. But also, it was just one of those things that my guys from UCLA that they ended up playing together with the Cowboys. They always talked about the brothers from Miami were the ones they hung out with the most. And y'all gave a lot of trash to a lot of people, but we respected the guys from UCLA because I guess they beat Miami in the Fiesta Bowl.
Right.
In 85, I think 84, 85. So it was one of those things where once that happened, you got, okay, well, y'all didn't lose much. I mean, I look at your record, 54-5 at Miami, won a couple national championships. But tell us about that with your dad. It's interesting. George Myra Jr. was suspended. You got an opportunity to play. And, man, you were all over the field that night. I remember that vividly.
Yeah, the great thing about it, like I said, preparation plus opportunity. I was ready for that moment. I'll never forget. It was Christmas Eve, and I got a call from Coach Wanstead. Obviously that's when we returned back down because back in those days there was only bowl games on January 1st back when we played, and the big games on January 1st. So I get a call from Coach Wanstead. I'm in my bed. He said, "Hey, we had an issue, so you're going to play this week." I said, "Yeah, Coach, I'm gonna be ready to play. I've been playing special teams all week long. I'm ready to play." He said, "No, you got to play this week." I said, "Oh, I got to start." So my mindset changed, and I went and told my mom and dad and told the rest of the family. My mindset changed when I got down there, and all the guys were behind me 100%. And that's what made me have the confidence that I had when I was ready to play in that game. Buck, and I'll tell you another crazy story. You're going to kick out of this one. Mike Irvin was my roommate at the time.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, we were talking, because Mike talk no, that's what Mike does. And Mike said, yeah, man, I think I'm going to go ahead and win this MVP. I was like, nah, Mike, I think I'm going to take care of this one. Because if you can remember, the year before that, Brian Bosworth got replaced by a linebacker. I can't remember his name, but I may have played with you, Buck. I can't remember if he went to the pros or not. He may have played with you, but he was a linebacker. And he ended up winning MVP because he replaced Brian Bosworth. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, it's the same scenario. If I go out here and do what I'm capable of doing, I can win the MVP. So I started talking noise. Mike, I said, "No, Mike, this was mine." And I never forget after the game when I won Most Valuable Player, we're in the locker room. Mike looked at me and said, "You said you was going to do it, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, big dog, I did." But again, the scenario was set up. But that's what you had to do in Miami. I tell people all the time, man, practices were a beast. And my practices were like a bloodbath. I mean, we go to inside run, guys try to take each other heads off, man. Then we leave the field and go to the locker room. We'd have a great time together. But our practices were hard. Our practices were intense. And that's on purpose for what Coach Johnson wants to do. That prepared us for games.
Yeah, when you have 40 or however many guys that end up in the league in your 4 years, I had 35. You have to play. You can't get on the field unless you can play well. Tell us a little bit about that when you first stepped on the field. Was Jerome Brown? Jerome was there still, right? Yeah, I mean, tell us about that defensive front because most people don't understand now. They'll watch back. Y'all didn't use a lot of pressure. As a linebacker, you didn't have to blitz a lot. Those 4 down, cover 2 man, y'all played, some other versions of zone. But those 4 guys up front were some beasts.
Oh, man, I was redshirt my first year because I wasn't cracking the lineup when I got there. It was one of those situations. And just to give a scenario of what you're talking about, we had Derwin Jones, Bill Hawkins, Jerome Brown, Dan Cilio. I can go on and on. That's what the D line. Now, my senior year, Buck, this is the crazy thing. My senior year, the line that started in front of me, nobody went later than the third round.
Wow.
So those are the kind of guys you had. This is the crazy. I always tell people that Cortez King didn't play until he was a senior.
I know. That's Cortez used to tell me that. I could not believe that story. I'm like, man, you lying. He said, no, Buck, I did not get on the field till my senior year.
That was the only time he played his senior. It's crazy you mentioned this because I was speaking with Alonzo Highsmith yesterday. Alonzo was telling me, because I was on scout team. Alonzo was like, man, you cats, y'all knew the play. Y'all trying to take our heads off every day. So the scout team guys were going against each other. And I'll never forget, Leon Searcy was one of the offensive linemen on scout team when I was a starter. So those are the kind of depth we had, and it was a bloodbath, like I said, and guys were going at it. Guys were trying to take each other. The one thing you didn't want to do in Miami was get hurt. Because you got hurt, you may never get back on the field. It's so funny. I was listening to what's my man's name? I can't remember his name. Clinton Portis. Mm-hmm. And Clinton was on a podcast, and Clinton was talking about when Clinton was there, Frank Gore, Willis McGahee, Clinton Portis, Edwin James, and there was one more, Najee Davenport.
Yeah, they have 5 guys
in the backfield. And all those guys waited their turn. That's what's so fun to me about the transfer portal right now. All those guys competed and waited their turn. I played behind George Meyer. I waited my turn. Maurice Crum came in. Everybody knew there was going to be a competition every spring, but everybody was excited about the competition.
You know, it's crazy. I got close to Shane Curry when we were in Indy, and rest his soul, lost his life early at an early age. But Shane was one of those Miami cats, and he kind of talked about having to grow up. Willis Pegues. Willis Pegues, he was also there with the Colts. And it was just interesting to talk to other people when you get a chance to understand kind of why, because I always want to know why teams are so good. We can see it, but what was the secret sauce? Meaning, what did y'all do every single day? And it was about competing. It was about trying to get on the field. The other thing is, I have to ask you about the rivalry with Florida State, because, I love you get the flag thrown on your head, but there's so much in that history we don't really realize today. But if kids go back and watch Google, or we go back, you can see some of the great players of all times in that rivalry.
Well, the great thing about it was a respectful rivalry. It wasn't a hatred rivalry. It's like we knew those guys. Like my cousin Eric Hayes played defensive tackle for the Florida State Seminoles, and he also played with the Seahawks. But Eric played there, so it was a rival between us. It was like guys knew each other. Guys always hung out together and things like that. That's why it was such a rivalry, because we had so much respect for each other. We want to take each other's heads off. Also, it was one of those situations. I'll never forget when we beat them in '88, and they came out. They ranked them number 1. They ranked us number 6 after winning the national championship. And so they came down to the Orange Bowl. They had this national championship dance or whatever they were doing about how to go win the championship. And we waxed them 31-0. So it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, if you're going to put them in front of us, we're going to take care of business. And it's always been a great rivalry. There's no doubt about it. But again, I think it's been more of a respectful rivalry as opposed to a hated rivalry.
We'll come back. We'll take a break here. We'll come back with Bernard Clark Jr., Tiger, middle linebacker for Miami Hurricanes, Cincinnati Bengals. My man. We'll be right back.
At Heslop Wealth Advisors, our goal is to help small businesses develop quality retirement plans for their employees through our Lunch and Learn seminars. We provide lunch and learning tools to help your company succeed and unmatched customer service.
All right, we're back with Bernard Clark Jr., Tiger, talking about, just all the different things. Now, as you finish your career, you're getting ready to get drafted. We're in the East-West Shrine game. Man, I can remember that vividly because we talked trash the whole week. Played against had a good time. And then sure enough, I get drafted by the Saints, end up going to the Colts. And you were drafted by the Bengals. Yes. So, tell me a little bit about that experience and all the everything leading up to the draft.
Well, and I know, you wait all your life, man, for that to happen. You're busting your behind in high school. You don't know if it's going to come to fruition, but it's one of those situations you're dreaming it comes to fruition. And when it did, and when it finally did, I'll tell you a funny story, man. My first year with the Bengals, I had a roommate. His name was Mitchell Price. And I was a 3rd-round pick, and Mitchell was, I think, an 8th or 9th round pick. and both of us made a team. And I remember we were sitting on the couch, and me and him looked at each other, just busted out laughing. I said, "You think what I'm thinking?" He said, "Yeah, bro, we in the NFL." So it was one of those situations, man. It was just the excitement that came with it was just unbelievable, man. But I tell you one thing, one great thing about my dad, Buck, and my dad let me off the hook early. My dad's like, "Look, when you get drafted, if this happens for you, that's your money. You were our responsibility as parents. At no point in time we ever going to be your responsibility. If you want to help me and your mom out, you can, but don't you ever feel obligated to help us out. You were our responsibility. We're not your responsibility." I was like, wow, because there's so many young men that go into the NFL and automatically think, I got to buy this, I got to buy this, I got to buy this. Mom, I got to get that. My mom and dad never put that kind of pressure on me when it came to stuff like that. I just enjoyed being there, man. It's an amazing feeling, man, to go there. Something you've been fighting for all your life, and you finally get there, and you finally get where you need to be at, and you make it, and you're just excited, man. It's like a load lifted off you.
Now, what was the transition like for you when you finished the game? What was it like when it was time to leave the NFL for you?
Well, the toughest thing for me, Buck, I tell people this all the time, man. I was never a student of the game, Buck. And I don't mean that in the sense that I didn't know what I was supposed to do as a player, but you know what a student of the game is. I didn't study offensive tendencies. And when I got to the NFL, I went from a 4-3 defense to a 3-4 defense. And I tell people all the time, I played 2 years and I didn't play 10 because of that reason. Because you know and I know, from the neck down, everybody's supposed to be in that locker room. Everybody has the ability to be there. Everybody has the size. Everybody has the speed. But from the neck up is what separates you from lasting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years and only lasting 2 years. And I tell my players that all the time, man, make sure you become a student of the game, not just be a good player. You know, I'm 6'2", 240 at the time, ran a low 4.7, and I could hit. That carried me through high school, carried me through college. It's going to carry me through the pros. But when you get there, you realize, man, everybody can run and hit. What's going to separate you? And I never took the time to separate myself and become a student of the game. So when I was done, the NFL divorced me. I ain't.
Hey man, it don't let you off easy, right? I don't care how long or how short you play, right?
So it divorced me. So it was a situation I had to figure out some stuff quick, man. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, because and I know you putting them pads on for 20-something years, all your life, and all of a sudden you ain't putting the pads on anymore. Okay, now what I want to do. So I tried a lot of business ventures, wasted a lot of money trying to find this niche, trying to start this business, trying to start that, trying to do that. I became a car salesman for about 5 years, man, and I made good money at it, but I didn't enjoy it. It was a situation where there's some months I can make 15 grand, but there's other months I can make 2 because I didn't want to be there. And then May of '96, man, I gave my life to Christ. And I just asked God, I said, man, give me some guidance, Lord. Just show me where you want to go. And he led me back to football. And I'll never forget when I first started selling cars, there was this guy, the manager, he wanted me to teach his son. His son played linebacker. He said, hey, man, can you show my son something? I said, yeah, but I don't want to step on the head coach's toes. So let's talk to him first. When I talked to the head coach, next thing I know, the head coach asked me to be his defensive coordinator. I'm like, man, I ain't never coached football in my life. But he stole the Miami playbook. I don't know where he got it from, but he handed me the University of Miami playbook. He said, can you learn this? I was like, I think I can learn this. And I fell in love with it. But I always tell people, I didn't fall in love with the X's and the O's of it. You know how it goes. It's not about the X's and the O's. It's about the Jimmys and the Joes. And the first time I spoke to those young men and they looked me in my eye, I said, I must have something they want to hear. And that's why I fell in love with it. And my mission statement, since I've been a coach and now that I'm a head coach, is to create an environment on and off the football field to continue what families have done and help these guys become better men, better husbands, and better fathers. 3 most important things ever going to be in their life. And that's my mission as a coach. I'm trying to get that out of them through football because Buck, football has molded our lives. It's made us the men that we are. Now, we're not football. We are men, but it's made us who we are. It's taught us discipline. It's taught us trust. It's taught us honesty. It's taught us togetherness because all those things are needed in football. And people say this all the time. Football doesn't build character. It reveals character because if a man can take it on that field, he can't take it on that field. And so it helped me build it. So that's my mission statement. I'm just trying to build these young men and help them in the right way.
That's awesome, man. And, the thing is, you're at Robert Morris University now, right outside of Pittsburgh. But tell me a little bit about the transition because coaching football is not easy. And you've been, James Madison, Liberty, FIU, South Florida, FIU again, Hampton.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh with Wannstedt, Colorado State, Hampton again, Albany.
yeah,
I
man.
don't think people realize the struggle of a coach's life. And clearly, your wife Tammy is a godsend because she's a coach's
Absolutely.
wife, right? So
Yes,
I knew I couldn't do the coaching unless it was the perfect situation. Just knowing my
absolutely.
family and
Right.
my situation, I love the years that I did coach. But tell us about that process to getting your own head coaching position.
Well, when I started, man, this is why I know I got a my wife is my rock, man. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I heard this thing. It says, "Don't let your dream become a distraction." So when I first started coaching at James Madison, I knew I wanted to be a head coach, but it was in God's time it was going to happen. I tell my wife, by the time I'm 50, babe, because I ain't started coaching till I was 32 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I think, babe, by the time I'm 50, I want to be a head coach. And so I started at James Madison. I went to James Madison. I went to FIU. After that, I went to USF. I'm all over the place.
And I was calling some of the games, so we would see each other.
Exactly. And so what I do was I apply for a head job here. My wife looked at, she said, "Didn't you say by the time you're 50, you're gonna be a head coach?" She said, "Let God do this." And so what I would do, man, I learned everywhere I went. Every place I stopped, I started getting information about head coaching, but also about being a defensive coordinator. So next place I went, I was a defensive coordinator at FIU. And then I went to USF, then I came back as D-line coach after you and I got back together. So all those things has happened. So I went a long trail, but when I finally got here, this is the crazy part. I was at UAlbany, and I was a defensive coordinator in UAlbany, man. I got the job here December 17th, 2017. But January 12th, 2018, I turned 50. So it's all in God's time, man. That's my wife was trying to tell me, don't let your dream become a distraction, babe. Stay on course to where you need to be at. And you're right, it was a journey. It was a crazy journey, but I learned everywhere I went. I either learned what to do from a head coach. I learned what not to do from a head coach. I learned what to do from a defense coordinator. I learned what not to do from a defense coordinator. But you have to continue to learn. And you told me this last week. It's either winning or it's learning. Ain't no such thing as losing. That's what you told me last week. So, and those are the things I've done over the years.
Yeah, man. But it's interesting to see so many of you guys, from whether it's Deion Sanders, Eddie George, guys that we played with or against, now getting into that coaching profession. There are others, but it's interesting to see the maturation of the Ed Reed for just a short time at Bethune-Cookman. But I think we both agree will be a head coach at some point. What is it that you learn? And sometimes as former players, coaches treat us worse than guys that have never played the game. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, I think when it comes to something like that, but a lot of coaches may feel intimidated because you played the game at a higher level. They may be intimidated about you coming on the staff and the players looking to you more than maybe looking to them. That becomes an issue also with some of the coaches. But I think a lot of the former players, the reason they get into it is because of the young men. I don't think they get into it for the money aspect of it, because they saw how they were treated as players when they played, and they want to do something special for those guys. I think that's what that's why he was so passionate about what he got into when he first got to Bethune-Cookman. It was a passion overflowing because he wanted something good for those young men. He wanted to make sure they had something good. And I think when you get a former coach, when you get a former player who played at the highest level, somebody like Deion or somebody like Eddie George, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make sure these young men are put in the right direction and have the right mindset. Because and I know, there ain't but 1,700 jobs. And they ain't replacing those 1,700 every year. They ain't replacing for 300 something. So you got to make sure these young men understand it's not a plan B. Your plan A is get to the NFL. I understand that. But when that plan A don't work out, you need to drive at this other plan A just as hard as you drove to that plan A to get to the NFL, and help them understand that it's the process. It works. And, Inky Johnson has an unbelievable quote where he says, can you be committed to a process without being emotionally attached to the results? And that's what it boils down to. You got to use the young men to be committed to the process, because the process that helped me and you get to the NFL, that's the same process I use to become a coach. That's the same process you use to become an announcer, because that grind and that hard work and that dedication puts you where you want to be at. So you're trying to teach these young men, and I think that's the biggest reason why a lot of former players are getting into it.
Well, the other thing is, I love that, I remember when you were writing your book, you just kept talking about it. Finally came to fruition. They say everybody has one book in them. So you got yours out. Tell us a little bit about Ascension, a coach's guide to becoming a better man, father, and husband.
Well, the thing about it is, it's more about, it has nothing to do with football. That's the first thing about it. The book. The reason I wrote the book is because what I saw was a lot of young men don't understand their worth. I know you're talking about women not knowing their worth. A lot of young men don't understand their worth. A lot of young men don't understand. You're not supposed to be sleeping with this girl, this girl, this girl, this girl. You're supposed to value your body. Your body is just as precious. Now, fathers don't have that conversation with their sons, but they have that conversation with their daughters. Wait till you're married. Don't you give your body away. But that's the conversation I think that a lot of fathers should have with their sons also, to make them understand that not every woman is worthy of having you. You can't have sex with this woman, this woman. You can't have kids. You got to be smart about your body. Your body is a temple of God, just like the woman's body is. And that's what made me want to write this. There's a story I tell in the book, and it's so hilarious because I talk about a young man getting drafted, going to the NFL. He goes to a club, pulls up to the club, sees a nice young lady, goes in, meets her, takes her back home, and right before they're about to do the do, she says, "Hold up, I forgot to tell my friends I was leaving the club with you. Can I borrow your car and go back and let them know?" Now, you know what I know, that you ain't borrowed my car. That's not even a question. But the same thing, now you go ahead and do the do. You just let her borrow your body, but you ain't let her borrow your car. What kind of sense does that make? That doesn't make any sense. But men don't put the value of a car over the value of their body because we don't look at it the same way. We just look at it as a tool to use when we want to use it. So it's a book about young men coming to understand and love themselves and understanding that you are just as precious as anybody else, and you should be treating yourself as such.
Yeah, and, the big thing we talked about as well is the tough part of having a group of young men that so many different egos and personalities. They're just like we were when we were growing up.
Absolutely.
No matter what level, I don't care what it is. What's been the thing that you have found that you like the most about that? Because we can always say the negative thing, but they have social media, they have this, they have that. What is one thing that you can link yourself to them so they know you're talking the same language?
Buck, there's a chapter in my book that says change is inevitable, but growth is a choice. I've had to grow to coach a lot of these young men because, Buck, they're not built like we're built. And that's what it boils down to. I can't coach these guys the way Jimmy Johnson coached me. Yeah. So the evolution of trying to figure out how do you get the best out of one of these young men, that's probably been one of the most challenging, but also one of the most rewarding situations when it comes to coaching college football, because these young men are different. Like you said, they have social media, they have this, they have that, and I'm at a smaller school, but my guys here, they want the same thing they got at Pitt. They want the same thing they got at Alabama. So how do you help them understand that we don't have that, but we have this?
I got you.
And that's been a challenge. And not only that, trying to get them to give their all. I'm not sure about how many guys really love the game of football anymore. I don't think they love the game of football. They love the limelight that football gives them. So that's the other challenge. So those challenges have been rewarding, but at the same time, they've been kind of stubborn. So you got to be able to understand that change is inevitable. It's going to happen, but can you grow with these changes? A lot of the young coaches I have on my staff, they're constantly telling me, "Hey, coach, we got to do this, got to do this. You got to go on Twitter. You got to go on Facebook. You got to go on Instagram. I'm like, man, y'all killing me with all this stuff, but I have to do it. I have to post stuff on there because that's what these young men are around." So that's probably been the most challenging part, but also the most rewarding part.
How much NFL football do you watch nowadays? I know you're coaching, and I know it's not easy, but how much of the NFL game do you still watch?
Man, Buck, it's hard to watch the NFL. I ain't gonna lie, man, because I'm a defensive guy, Buck. You're an offensive guy. You probably loving the NFL right now, but man, this tackling is driving me crazy, man. I can't stand the way some of these guys. There's some good tacklers, but there are also some guys that are just not good tacklers, man. And it's a lost art. And the reason it's a lost art because, again, back when we played, we were able to tackle during training camp. We were able to hit each other. So you got used to doing it. They're not able to do that anymore. They're making too much money. So everybody's worried about this guy getting hurt, that guy getting hurt. So it's a situation in practice, you're not practicing the way you need to. So when you get in the game, it's not there. So I still enjoy the game. Don't get me wrong. I still enjoy watching these guys do things that are absolutely amazing. You got a guy like Aaron Donald. Everybody say he's not supposed to be there because he's 6 feet tall, but Aaron's destroying people left and right. You love watching him play. And I coached Shaquille Barrett when I was at Colorado State. I really love watching Shaquille because I recruited him and coached him. So watching him play, it hurt my heart, man, this year when he got hurt. I mean, I cried myself. I texted his wife. I was like, he okay? She's like, he's going to be okay, coach. So it's one of those situations. So I still enjoy watching the game. I just wish they put some of the aspect back in the game because basically you can't touch a quarterback anymore. You can't do anything. And it's slowly trickling down to college when it comes to these quarterbacks too. But that's probably the only thing I don't like about it. Some of the physicality's been taken out of it, but I still enjoy watching the game.
Well, I mean, I go on college campuses now, and I'm always looking, and I stopped 5-10 years ago of looking for inside drill because I don't see it anymore. I mean, you don't see 907.
we do it, but we don't tackle. We do
well,
it.
That's what I'm saying. You can't, it was, we had tackle 907 and we had thud. You were hoping you'd get thud, but for the most part, it was going to be full on.
It goes back to what you were just talking about. When we did 907 in Miami, it was a bloodbath. Plain and simple. Wasn't no thud. We knew that drill was going to be live and no other drill was going to be. It may not be live for the rest of the day, but inside run was going to be live because Jimmy Johnson believed in that because he wanted a tough defense and he wanted a tough offense.
Who do you think wins the Super Bowl out of Philly and
Oh man, I'll be honest with you. I like to see Philly win it, and I think they might. It just depends on how well I think Patrick Mahomes is. If Patrick Mahomes full go, it may be a little tough. But you think about Philly's D-line, man. Everybody on that D-line's got double-digit sacks.
Oh, no.
So it's going to be kind of hard to hold them back. And even though the Chiefs got a great D-line also, I don't think the Bengals' offensive line was 100% last week.
Yeah.
And they took full advantage of that. I think Philly's offensive line is going to be a little bit better. I like to see Philly win it, but I tell you what, if Mahomes comes out here 100% and Kelsey's 100%, it's kind of hard to stop them cats, real hard. And if Juju can go, I mean, they got some weapons, and that running back they have is a phenomenal run.
Pacheco, he is a beast. Yes.
Yeah. You know how I want to be a defensive game no matter what. And I hope the score is low. I hope it's like 20-21, and I can really enjoy the game. I think Philly has a shot, but I think it all depends on how Patrick Mahomes feels.
I agree with you. Hey, well, we usually do something here called the 2-minute drill. We just go fast, and I'm gonna ask questions. First thing that comes to your mind, just
I got
blurt it out there.
Let's do it.
Off defensive guys, I let them score too. So we're gonna march you down the field, but we're gonna ask you, what's the one item you could never live without?
My wife.
Good answer, man. That's a big play right there. Yeah.
I know you said my wife.
I thought you were gonna say, your cigars, your coke, hey, your wife, man.
Rock, man.
Well, the next question is why?
Because she's been there for me, man. She's my rock. She's been there for me. When the times I did get fired from jobs, man, my wife's a flight attendant. She'd go to work, say, baby, I got this. Don't worry about it. You're going to get another call. Everything's going to work out. When I got that call, she slowed down. But no, she's been there for me.
What's your favorite movie ever?
Favorite movie ever? Yeah. Scarface.
Oh, Tony Montana.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt about it.
Well, I think I know.
That and Malcolm X.
I like both of them. Yeah. I know this one probably is going to be one thing, but I'm still asking. Good. What means most, money or passion?
Passion.
I didn't even have to ask that one because Tiger will get so fired up. He's being tame now. And the next time we do this, we're going to do it with a cigar and just kind of chill. It makes 2 hours. Top double buck.
You know what? That sounds good to me, Buck. I love to do it. But no, man, passion's far more important to me, man. I love what I do. This is my purpose, Buck. And I tell everybody, there's a quote by Mark Twain. It says, the 2 most important days in your life is the day you're born and the day you find out why. This is why I was born. This is why I was born.
Here's one for you. What's your favorite fashion trend that you don't get?
I ain't never wearing skinny jeans in life.
Hey, man, I might have to let you score on that one because if you ever see me in some skinny jeans, I want you to just come and blast me like Terry Tate.
I'm walking right up behind you. I'm coming right up behind you. I said, bro, what are you doing? I ain't never wearing skinny slacks, skinny jeans, skinny anything in my life.
Hey, man, I think you scored on that one. Wow. Man, it's so good to have you on the show. It's been too long. We'll do it again. Bernard Clark Jr., Tiger, great having you on Chopping It Up with Buck.
Thanks, Buck. I appreciate you, man. God bless.